one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. The bells on bobtail ring, they make our spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight.
Oh!
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
I turn my mic up.
There's your mic.
Hey, have you ever done the
Now I can
parody?
hear you.
Jingle bells, the Batman smells, Robin laid the egg.
Yeah, in elementary school. Yeah.
All right, let me get into Zoom so I can get
Elementary.
our first guest on. I'm super excited. Good morning, crew members.
Good morning to the crew. Merry Christmas. The elves were busy last night at Venture X here in Frisco.
We're at 7:05 this morning.
Yeah, or whatever.
Got into a drifted bank and we got upside. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle.
I've never heard that verse.
They say top 100 Christmas songs.
Okay, so there's that.
Jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
Good times.
Now the ground is white, so go it while you're young. Take the girls tonight and sing the sleighing song. Just get a bobtailed nag, 240 for his speed. Then hitch him to an open sleigh and crack, you'll take the lead. Oh, jingle bells.
See, are those the real verses? Like later on in the song or something?
Oh, what fun it is
Crack,
to
you
ride
take
in a
the
one-horse
lead.
open sleigh.
Okay.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way.
Like,
Oh,
wait a
what fun
second.
it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
There you go. That's fun.
And then there's that.
And then there's that.
And good morning.
Good morning to the crew.
Happy
JP is
morning.
running the board again, so everybody step back.
Step back.
And look, Christmas elves arrived
They
and
have.
decorated the
Here,
studio.
I'm going to do this because I don't know that you can get a great help. There's
They
James.
used
Look at
JP's car. We've got James Seller coming on today, Dr. Rebecca Good, and then Lathan Watts. So we've got a full show for you, tons to talk about, and some Christmas celebration to do. And everybody send some prayers Chambrielle's way because she has got finals today and again on Friday. So she will be back in studio next week. But in the meantime, it's a winter wonderland.
It is a winter wonderland. How fun is that, right?
I love it. Okay, but you didn't get any decorations over on your side of the studio because you're running the board.
Well, not yet. It's a coming.
All we have is the big light that we use for special videos,
Awesome.
and there you go.
Let's see if we can get a bigger frame with that. Oh,
Yay, look.
Give some more, see?
Look at all the fun stuff.
Yeah, it's very pretty.
We
All
need to do a Christmas logo in the background. We need to do seasonal logos.
You're asking a lot right now.
I know.
You're
Corley, are you awake?
And you're already-
Send it to JP right now.
You're already pushing it. I'm just letting you know.
It is just the beginning of the show, and let the record show.
Hey, why don't you preview while I'm getting James up? Let everybody know what we got coming on.
Okay, we've got James Seller from Sightmark, and we're going to be talking with him about, obviously guns and things of that nature, Second Amendment, but we're going to ask him what his thoughts are on Santa denying a 4-year-old flat out right. There are a million times, I'm sure I probably asked for a unicorn, a flamingo, and a pony. I'm sure. And Santa just says, well,
James,
we'll
can you
see
hear
what
us?
happens. But this kid was flat out
Say something,
denied
James.
because of what he said. Hey,
Oh,
now
there-
we can hear
there-
you.
All right, very good. Okay.
And then after that, Dr. Rebecca Good. If you know anybody who is struggling, if you know people who are worried about feeding their kids during the Christmas holidays, she has got some information for you on public schools and who can help and how they can help and all that kind of good stuff. So just please stay tuned for that. And then Lathan Watts will be on at 8:30. Actually, he'll be in studio, in our festive studio, and he will be talking about SCOTUS, about religion and your liberties and your religious liberties during the Christmas holidays, and what to expect, especially for those of you who are members of the crew in other states where you might not even have access to your place of worship. So, anyways, goodness
Pardon
gracious
me.
oh my, bless you.
Sorry, James.
Wow.
He couldn't
He's
help
like,
it.
that was my ear.
God bless you, John.
Thank you, James. Hey,
How
James.
are ya?
Good morning.
Good
How you doing, John,
morning.
Kathy?
We're doing well, thanks.
We're good. Hey, James, have you heard the story yet about the 4-year-old in
Yes.
Minnesota that went on Santa's lap? Now, and so Grandma and Mom are at the mall, and Grandma and Mom hear this wonderful exchange between Santa and the kid prior to her son. So Grandma, of course, she records everything. Pumpkin patch, doesn't matter what it is. She records it, right?
It's their job.
Right. And so she records this. And have you heard this yet? Santa, so he gets on his lap and he says, "What can Santa bring you?" And he says, "I want a Nerf gun." And he goes, I'm sorry, but Santa cannot bring you a gun. If your mom or dad want to get you one, that's up to them. But Santa will not bring you a gun. What else do you want? "I want a Nerf gun. That's all I want for Christmas." And he goes, "I'm sorry, but Santa will not bring you that. Do you want a bike or a car or a PlayStation 5? "No, I just want a Nerf gun." And the little boy leaves Santa's lap bawling.
Yeah, wow, that's right.
And Grandma, of course, runs to the nearest kiosk and buys him a remote control RC car tank to drive around. And so then Hasbro, the mall feels bad, so the mall sends. And so as the 4-year-old said this morning on the news.
I'm glad somebody felt bad in authority.
The bad Santa said he wasn't going to bring me a Nerf gun, but the good Santa brought me a special care package from the mall. Well, Hasbro has now stepped up and is sending him every Nerf blaster in their arsenal for the 4-year-old.
I love it.
That is awesome.
I love that.
So,
That's
James,
good.
I want to kick that off, and I want to get your opinion on it. I mean, here's somebody, James, that you've grown up around guns. I know your dad did not oppose guns in the house, and my parents didn't. We had guns in our house. Hunting was acceptable, not a bad thing.
Right.
Is it Santa's job? I mean, James, you're in this market.
No.
Is it Santa's job? I mean,
I absolutely. But it's interesting. We have a bill that's in Congress that's being proposed in the state of Texas about doing away with the castle rights. I don't know if you saw that.
I have not. I'd heard about that. Tell us more about it because I've not read anything yet.
I think it's the representative from Irving, and it's something that was proposed, I think, a day or two ago. And they want to make it illegal to defend yourself against an armed criminal that broke into your house to steal and hurt you, because they feel that the best thing to do is just let them take what they want, because most likely they have less than you do. So they deserve to have a little more, and then the best thing you do to protect your family is not to fight back.
Okay, so this
I'm not making this up.
I was going to say, you
maybe
can't
it's
make
not
this
true.
up.
I don't know, but it blew me away. So I wonder if the Santa's working for the same crowd as this representative from Irving.
And that's
James,
frightening. That's in the state of Texas. That's proposed legislation is what you're saying for this upcoming legislative session, which hasn't even started.
I'm moving to Irving. Kathy, you'll need to put your political consultant hat back on.
Good
James,
night.
I will need you to make a
Yes,
donation to my campaign of $10,000 to get me
We
started.
need you. We need you. We need you in Austin.
I want to know who that. I want to know.
I mean, that's crazy.
We do.
That's
Absolutely.
insane.
I think I can find a couple pairs of shoes that haven't worn out yet that I can still hit the trail for you, John.
Hey, James, we wore out. I mean, just me alone, I wore out 8 pairs of shoes walking door to door. I know I wore you out too.
That's
Well,
unreal.
I was still in school, I think. I was still studying, and I wish I did more. But you won by a landslide. That was fun. I can't wait till you win again and we get you back in Austin.
Well, in here, let's talk about Austin, and let's talk about the fact that in Texas we cannot take for granted. Yes, we are a majority red state, but this is the kind of stuff that you have to be on top of, because this is something where we are going to need citizens to write emails, to send faxes, to send text messages, to call. If the Capitol, and we don't know what the session is going to look like yet, this is one of those times where literally we should be up in arms, pun intended. I hear this and I'm thinking, okay, if somebody breaks into my house and I'm by myself, even if my family's, even if my husband's there, I need to be protected. So literally I'm just going to be like, okay, I'm going to sit in my kitchen, put my dog in my lap, and then you just take whatever you want. Okay, and really, they're not going to shoot me at the end anyways, or beat me up, or rape me, or knock me out, or injure me, or again, so you're assuming that these are nice criminals? Is that what this person is saying?
Yeah, I guess,
Oh
I
my
think justice
gosh.
now has
Oh
more
my
to do
gosh.
with the income and quality of life disparity between the victim and the criminal. I think that's the
Okay.
social justice they're looking for. I don't know. It's interesting to read between the lines because it definitely seems like people are missing the point. Crime is crime, and we need order and we need law to protect
Yes.
people and reduce crime. We don't want to create environments that encourage, violence and death and misery. So I always wonder, who really is for violence, because it's not the Second Amendment crowd. We want safe and productive people. We don't want
Law and
violence, and we
order.
use Second Amendment to protect ourselves and prevent it. So interesting times.
That's-
But
wow.
no, I think to get back to something a little lighter, the holidays and the tradition of kids growing up and looking forward to presents, everything from the BB gun to the first hunting rifle. I think that I think honestly, learning about firearms early and young, how to defend yourself, whether it's the airsoft or Nerf. I mean, at the end of the day, the life is precious, and you have to be prepared and ready to stand up and defend it. I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a young boy, wanting to be a hero, protecting his country or his family, or being a police officer, protecting society from chaos and violence. So I don't think that asking for a Nerf gun from Santa is that bad of an idea. So that's crazy that's happening.
And it's not Mall Santa's job to say, I mean, like I told JP before the show, I'm sure I probably at some point asked for a unicorn, a flamingo, and a pony. I'm just assuming.
Nothing wrong with
Pegasus.
that.
And I guarantee you the Santa's probably like, well, okay, have you been a good little girl? And then my parents are probably like, well, that's what we're going to get out of the pony and all that kind of stuff with Kathy. But it's one of those things that it's not somebody else's job to, knock my kids' dreams out of their head. That's not okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back. I want to go back to the law that you're saying, this Irving. And if anybody knows about this or can get the language to us, please let us know. But this reminds me of back when everybody was before Corona, when the big thing was this is a gun-free house and this is a safe zone and no guns here and stuff. And remember, there were people who put yard signs in their yard or in their apartment window that said this is a gun-free safe zone. So to me, if you pass legislation like this, then basically you're telling thieves, robbers, murderers, rapists, all of the above, attackers, criminals, period. They're criminals. If you're breaking the law, you're telling them, you're basically saying, just go out to the nicest neighborhood where you can get through the gated community thing or not, and go out there and bust a move, and nobody's going to have a gun. You're going to be the one in charge. Take what you want, and hopefully they don't have a Ring door camera. I mean, that's what that reminds me of.
Here's the thing, just to give some context, but it definitely needs to be fact checked. It's supposedly State Representative Terry Menza introduced House Bill 196, and that is the representative from Irving. So definitely look that up. There's some quotes attributed to this representative talking about the position, and it's absolutely utter nonsense. It makes absolutely no sense. It's like, if you want to increase the amount of crime and you want to have people being hurt, repealing the castle law to me is the way you do it. So I don't know what this person's
Okay, so this is actually, I believe, JP, with this House District 105 back in the day, was that Will Harnet's old seat. That's where she is, from the Oak Cliff area, District 105. She is a Democrat. And just looking at some of the things, here we go. 3 weeks ago, it's House Bill 196 and my position on the Texas Castle Doctrine. She's saying it has been misrepresented. So we'll have to check. We'll have to read this and check this out. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, is my thought on something like that.
So let's change gears. We'll go ahead and we'll research that and get involved with that. And I'm going to let Dr. Good here in, and we'll ask her just to hang tight for me. So just hang tight there, Dr. Good. So, James, let's shift gears. You know, my word in 2020 is charity. That's my word, right? And charity in your heart and your soul for other humans and mankind. Not necessarily let me get you a gift or let me go out and
Humans
buy you
or animals.
Well, either way. I was, the
creatures, all living things.
How about all God's
God's children?
I like saying all
including
God's
puppies.
stuff. All God's stuff.
Yeah, all God's stuff. That's in the Bible. I read
is.
that last
It's in the
night in
Bible.
Luke.
So, James, though, real quick, though, I mean, there's got to be some really cool gifts that you can get, like your outdoorsman or outdoorswoman or child in your household from Sightmark and products you guys sell. I mean, I know I got one guy that he's looking you up because he wants to get a better scope for his hog hunting gun. And so
awesome.
When he tells me what he wants, I'm going to call you and see how he buys it from you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that there's a lot of great gift ideas for the outdoorsman, the hunter, the shooter, anybody that owns a home, anybody that's concerned about their safety, anybody that wants to be a prepared citizen and patriot. Lots of good ideas out there. It's interesting times because the biggest complication. So we're gonna have to get a little creative right now. The biggest complication is that a lot of the best gifts are on wait list. A lot of the great products, you're gonna have to wait to get it. So first things first, you if there's something that somebody really wants, they need a new state-of-the-art Sightmark scope or a pulsar thermal or a digital wraith, which is a night vision device for hog hunting. You're going to have to wait a little bit for that. So, but I think that the old, I don't know if you had this as a kid, but there's a lot of times where that coveted gift was sold out, and then you had a picture of it in a box or in the stocking, saying that when this comes in, you're going to get one. That might actually be important to consider. So if that's an option. The other thing I've heard right now from any hunter and shooter is, if anybody has any ammo, talking about charity, there's a lot of good people out there that don't have any ammo. So if you have any extra, you could make somebody's day by putting that in their stocking. I want a friend of mine from a range down in, TDSA range, was telling me that some of his people are reporting that they're paying $1 a round for 9mm. So that stuff is getting very coveted. Yeah. So that's pretty scary. So if you got some ammo and you're feeling charitable and you have a friend that's going without, make sure they're set up. Now, we do have one gift that is something that would help you save some of that ammo for when you need it the most. We have a product called a laser Boresight. So this would be a good gift, less than $50 category. And that allows you to set in your rifle using a laser that you put inside the chamber, just like a regular bullet. And that laser will project onto the target. You sight in your sights, check your zero, and then when you shoot, you're going to be very close to that target. So that will effectively cut down the amount of ammo that you're wasting sighting in your rifles or checking zero on the way to the deer stand. So I'd recommend that one as a top of the list. Every hunter needs that in their stocking. I'd be happy to have that. Now, there's a couple of gifts that everybody wants, and it's like the new PlayStation, right? Everybody wants it, just hard to get. The Sightmark Wraith. Especially in Texas, we all love hog hunting, and the Sightmark Wraith is really the best, most effective night vision device. And that product comes in less than like $700. Again, if you can get it, or maybe people are willing to wait when that comes in. What do you think? I can tell you what the most back ordered and most popular in demand item is, and you'll be surprised. It's over $2,000 at retail. But the Pulsar Thermion and Pulsar Trail laser rangefinder thermal rifle scopes are so popular right now that it may be several months before, if you put an order in, you might wait for those. Unless you find a retailer that have it, those are the most coveted kind of items right now in the whole hunting shooting industry. So
James,
anyway, those are my topics.
If somebody were to slip me like $1,000 to get close to you, and I split that with you, 500.
To get close to you, is this a bromance?
It may be. Well, no, I already had that. James
Hey,
already had that
James,
going on.
how you doing?
Could we maybe slip him one out of the warehouse for like, $3,000?
Well, your best bet might be to borrow one until stock comes in. But it's actually funny. I'm heading out to I'm going out deer hunting, so I'm going to be taking our Sight Mark rifle scopes, and I am trying to get a thermal monocular so I can spot like the deer a mile away, and then figure out if they can get close enough to me and have a clean shot. So I'm begging for one of those, and it is not easy to get right now.
He is sitting on Santa. He is sitting on Santa's lap.
I'm asking sales and marketing. Did anybody have an extra unit I can borrow just for the weekend? And they start laughing at me. So I don't know what that means.
Oh, I love it.
R&D said our doors are closed. Don't come down to us. We're busy.
They're like, stay away. Stay away.
There are some advantages and some disadvantages to being the owner of a company.
Well, hey, at least they're not telling me I shouldn't get a Nerf gun for Christmas.
Right.
I was going to say, at least you're not being denied by Santa.
Well, James, how does everybody go on and look at your products and how they can figure out how they want to add to their holiday wish list? And so how does everybody find you and look at your products? And,
sure, absolutely.
And some of your retailers maybe around here in the area.
Yeah, we sell proudly through Academy here in Texas. I can always start with the Texas companies. We're a Texas company. Academy is a great store that carries a lot of our products, and they do a great job. Cabela's and Bass Pro also do a full assortment of Sightmark, Firefield, and Pulsar products. You can always go to our website, which is www.sightmark.com, and they'll help you find products as well. So there's just a lot of good local independent stores in your area, and if they don't have, Sightmark, Firefield, and Pulsar that you're looking for, you tell them to get it. We'll work with them. We'll try to get it to the store as soon as we can and get them set up. We love supporting, your local store as well. Anyway, want to make sure everyone's stocked up. And I do not want to hear about Santa telling anybody that they shouldn't get a Sightmark. I would be furious.
Please,
I'll keep my ears open.
Yeah, please report to James if Santa denies your child Sightmark.
Or you, if you go sit on Santa's lap, go,
items.
I want a Sightmark site that does thermal.
I dare you to go and sit on Santa's lap just for that, James, and get a picture.
I think, John, you and I could tag team a Santa, and I think that'd be good.
I think we should. Absolutely. I mean, I already was thinking. I'm thinking I need to go find a mall Santa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, James, thanks for coming on as always and sharing your knowledge and experience. And hey, as we get ready to get closer to the legislature, if your team's keeping up with it, I know they are, and what's going on out there in gun legislation, if you'll share it with JP, Kathy, and the crew when you come on your segment, that would be fantastic.
We can activate the crew.
It.
Yeah, we can activate the crew and have them, support good legislation, because there might be some good legislation out there that cleans up some laws we have or whatnot. But then anything that is going to go against the Second Amendment, let us know what you hear about, and we'll bust a move on that and get some testimony. However that's going to look this year.
Absolutely, we need to, because sometimes they slip it in, with other bills or other things. So you gotta be careful.
Amendments to bills. So you have to watch.
Well,
Thank you, James.
I'm going to let you jump off the Zoom feed, so I'm not going to kill you.
All right, well, I'll see you guys in 2021, but I'll be watching the show every day.
Hey, we better be getting together before 2021.
Well, I will see you, John.
All right.
Merry Christmas.
Happy
All
Christmas.
Right, take care.
Thanks, James.
Bye, guys.
All right. Guess who we've already got up and go? Woohoo! Look at that.
And guess what now? And JP and I have not switched personalities. You've got them reversed again.
What do I have reversed?
You have JP under me and Kathy under you.
Oh, well.
Just so you know, we're not having an identity crisis
I'm doing
today.
the best I can. Dr. Good,
and I'm
help
proud of
Kathy
you.
out. Help Kathy out, Dr. Good. I'm doing the best I can.
You guys are a little muffled. Did you know that?
We are?
On the feed as well?
I'm not sure. Just right here. And I can just see you, JP.
Right.
That's
the camera's
new
facing
computer.
me.
It's just,
okay.
And plus, he looks better than I do today. So
that's not true.
That's by design.
In fact, all of my clothes got left at the dry cleaners, so I'm going to work today in shorts and a polo shirt.
Okay,
did you hear the way he said that? All my clothes got left at the dry cleaners. Not his fault. He has
No,
no
yeah.
accountability there.
No
Somehow,
responsibility.
the clothes got left at the cleaners. He doesn't know how.
I don't know.
I don't know how that happened.
And I can't get them out unless I go by and pay for them and pick them up.
Welcome to America 2020. And no accountability.
Boy, there you go.
Well,
boy.
considering I'm the only one that drops off my clothes, that
Exactly.
kind of leaves me there. But I left him at the dry cleaners. Thanks for the accountability mark there, Dr. Good. Appreciate you.
That's my business. That's my total business.
That is
Look, did you hear her drop that? That my business.
I
You want to
know.
go to
Yeah,
town. Look at her. Well,
Oh,
first of
Dr.
all,
Good.
Dr. Good, thank you for switching up with SiteMark.
Yes.
Sellers with SiteMark. We appreciate you doing that this morning because your topic is huge. I even talked
And
about this
so
on
important.
another show
Oh, so important.
about how hard it is for a mom or a single dad or a family to be able to make themselves better if they're worried about their kids being able to eat and have food.
So, one of the things, and I've got the National School Lunch Program pulled up here. We're very blessed to have the National School Lunch Program. First of all, it's the second largest school lunch program in the country. The first takes care of our elderly, but it serves 100,000 public and nonprofit private schools and public and private schools. It serves just 31.8 million kids, and this is only a couple years old, or maybe 1 year old data. It's very recent, which is surprising for a government. But because of COVID, it's had to be kept up. But it is not hard to feed your kids today compared to how it was in the past or even pre-COVID, and that's something that I encourage parents to sort of think beyond themselves, and there sometimes tends to be a discouragement of, well, I don't want to tap into the resources that are available to me, even though I may need them, right? There is that reluctance.
Right.
Much like mental health resources and help, we've got to get more comfortable tapping into the resources that are being made available to us when we need them. We're not saying become a lifelong entitled user. That's not what we're saying at all. What we're saying is if you have 3 kids and we have nutritious meals that you qualify to get for this time, please tap into it, because I'm going to tell you something right now. For example, our district, we're not giving nearly away as much food as we were earlier in the year, and that worries us. Worries us that we have kids going hungry because for whatever reason the parents have stopped looking at us as a food source. So,
and that's kind of frightening because, again, is it one of those things that, okay, so people are not underemployed like they were or unemployed like they were, or do they have family who has kicked in, or have they found like a local, food bank, through their community or their church or something, or are they afraid to ask?
That is our hope. Now let me mention in the Collin County area, we have Minnie's Pantry, which is works very closely with the North Texas Food
Right.
Bank, which recently relocated to Plano, although it still serves all of North Dallas in Texas. But we are very able to tap into Minnie's Food Pantry for parents in the Collin County areas, and it's no questions asked. Okay, that's huge, folks.
Right.
If you need food and you're willing to stand in a line to get it, you're going to get food to make it through the holidays and beyond if you need it. There is also in Dallas County, there are plenty of food banks. I'll talk to the Mesquite area because that's where one of my biggest schools is. And we have a food pantry that's part of the Kiwanis Club that I'm secretary of now. And so we make sure that the kids and the families in the Mesquite, Dallas area, in the Pleasant Grove area have food available. So, that is one piece of the equation. The other is making sure those food pantries are fully stocked, right?
Right.
And not only with food, but with volunteers. And that's another big piece. I'll be talking about that on Sunday. We need to make sure that those of us who are healthy and feel well enough can volunteer in the food pantries to help assist get the food,
Yes.
not only to families, but also packed up. I know that the 17th 20th and 21st of December, the Kiwanis Club is helping in Mesquite area to, first of all, pack up the food.
Right.
And then 21st, we're giving out the food so that we have it out in time for the holidays. So if you are healthy and you want to maybe model for your kids, you have older kids possibly, and a lot of times 10 or 13-year-old kids are allowed at the food pantry to volunteer. Check it out first, call ahead, go to the websites, but go and volunteer. And I will guarantee there is nothing that will bond a family closer than putting a few hours in at a food pantry, because you feel leaving blessed
Yes.
that you had the health to help, blessed that maybe you don't have to tap into it at this time. Just all sorts of fantastic opportunities to model what to do right for our community in front of our kids, right? So there's so much having to do with food this time of year, right?
Right.
So, if I may break in for a moment, it looks like we may have a little breaking news. Coach Quigley is announcing that Brazos ISD superintendent has announced there will be no more remote learning second semester. Your options if you don't want to come back to school live is 1, to withdraw and move to another district, 2, withdraw and go to a private school, or 3, move, and 4, withdraw and homeschool on your own.
Wow.
That is not actually the first school district to do that. We've had several do that. And frankly, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are having trouble manning. Districts are having trouble manning both at home and face-to-face. We that's without really talking about our staff getting sick or staff being exposed and not being able to come to school. It is getting more and more difficult to be able to man both sides of that instructional program. So a lot of your smaller districts are just throwing in the towel and saying, folks, we're just going to have to say we're doing face-to-face and that's it.
Well, it's becoming something else, that's for sure. I'll tell you what, education has been thrown for such a loop, which means that these kids have been thrown for such a loop.
Yeah, God bless our school
Well,
age
and
kids.
we were
And our
talking,
teachers.
there was a thing done by Raise Your Hand Texas last night, and the premise was great. They asked kids to ask legislators in this area. It happened to be Representative Leach, Candy Noble, and
Matt Shaheen.
And they were asking them questions. And really what came out of there was the fact that nobody's going into the legislative session thinking about cutting public ed funds. And nobody does, but I mean, it's nice to keep hearing it.
Right.
But they're aware of the many challenges that are being faced by kids, that are being faced by staff. Kids want to go back to school. They do.
Right. They do.
But I'll give you my own situation. Our high school came back this week for the first time, and because about 30% wanted to come back, and but not all of our teachers are able to come back. We've had several who either have comorbidities or have somebody in the home, and
Right.
so if all of our high school wanted to come back, we would be in trouble.
Well, and especially at this time of year, like they're saying around the Christmas holiday time and the time when you're getting with family and people are out and about more than they have been maybe during the pandemic, just the risk factor goes up. So it's almost like it's so heartbreaking. There's like a no-win situation. And I think of, yes, do I want, I've got a son who's a junior. I want him back in school on campus with the normal kind of learning situation, up and moving around and all the kind of stuff that he had before. Then I also, JP and I have a dear friend who's a member of the crew, and her daughter has severe asthma. And I'm talking during a good, healthy portion, still ends up in the hospital, usually about once a month or every other month, just, needing to do breathing treatments, even though she has all the breathing apparatuses at home and all that kind of stuff. So I sit here, I always think, well, my son's healthy, so of course I want him out the door and back in school and with his friends and with his teachers and everything. But then my heart goes out to somebody like our friend who has a daughter with severe asthma, who literally has had to have that girl on almost lockdown this entire time.
Well, right now we're fortunate with kids like that. If her district were to say we're not doing virtual anymore, there are virtual school academies, and Legacy is not the only one who's doing that. But we've captured about 30 kids so far from across Texas whose own ISDs have either put down that law of only face-to-face, or whose virtual instruction is just not very engaging. And so we have captured kids and continue to capture. We have 10 more in the pike right now. So there are options available. That's sort of the nice thing. One of the COVID blessings that came out of all this is that we've been able to, for some districts, really get our instructional game strong in the virtual world enough that it brings in parents from across the state of Texas whose own virtual instructional programs are not strong. So,
Right.
Well,
we
it's
need
a
to-
matter of knowing for parents, right?
Right. Well, and here's the thing. I'm just thinking and I don't think the school district that her daughter's in will. Right now, they're doing a combination of both, remote and in person. If that changes, as a matter of fact, I'm going to mention something to her today. I'm going to ping her today and just let her know about y'all's school, just in case, and especially because you don't have to live right next door. You don't have to, it's not one of those things. You can live in a contiguous county and you're okay. Parents, because that is a serious risk. I get it. Yes, we want things to go back to normal, but if I had a child who had severe asthma like that, I'd be scared to death. They'd be the kid in the plastic bubble.
Well, and we have some of that. We do have, for example, one of our staff has a kindergartner who has severe asthma, and she's very good about bringing the screen and so forth. And so far, so good. He's been there all semester and been fine. But you just do what you have to do as a parent
Right.
for your child.
Right.
Knowing now that there are additional options out there for you. And so if your district were to say we're only going to do face-to-face,
Right.
there are other options.
Right.
And Dr. Good, of course, we've kind of changed the topic a little bit, and I want to go ahead and bring us.
Imagine Dr. Good and I getting off on a rant and going down a rabbit hole. I've been Dr. Good's been a good influence on me for so many reasons. When it comes to that kind of stuff, I've been a bad influence on her. So sorry about that, Dr. Good.
Well, guess what? You don't get to apologize this time. I'm taking it away from you.
Oh, he's controlling the mic, so he will be muting me. It's been nice talking to you, Dr. Good.
Because you didn't
Have a
do
lovely
it.
rest of the week.
You didn't do it.
I didn't?
I did when Coach Quigley
Yay,
sent
it
us the
wasn't
breaking
me.
right. So you don't. Hey, you don't get to take that. See, there you go. But because there's a lot to talk about moving forward next week in regards to, because the semester is getting ready to end, and I'm going to definitely want to get your take on what a lot of districts are doing, including Allen ISD, that was featured on WFAA, and the letter that went out to parents about what we talked about a couple weeks ago, where the commissioner came out and said, hey, if you feel like a student has too many unexcused absences, 3 being the threshold, or academically they are not making the cut, you can require them to come back face-to-face.
Yes.
And so I want to tackle that stuff next Wednesday.
Plano ISD's doing that.
Yes, and talk about that next Wednesday. When we get into the craziness of what does the second semester look like and what are schools dealing with.
Well, the second semester will be a lot more comfortable if they can finally make the decision to, if they're going to give a star, not to make it accountable to the schools to the point where it changes our accountability. It makes all these districts go to F or something, right?
Right.
And I think that's coming. There's a hint of it out there. It doesn't make sense not to take away that ding that's in the accountability system, because we're all working hard. We're all trying to figure out what's best for kids, and to have this looming state accountability test where it might cause us all to go to F.
Right.
It doesn't make sense.
That's frightening. Well, and that was one of the things on that Zoom call last night. with Raise Your Hand Texas, with the 3 representatives that were on, they were all on the same page about, hey, let's not take time away from teaching kids things that they're barely able to keep up with because of all the changes, and let's not shift gears and focus to test mode kind of a thing. So I was very pleased with all 3 of their responses, because they were all very, very, very serious about their conviction when it comes to the STAR test.
Matter of fact, I don't know if you picked up on the fact that Matt Shaheen talked about the committee that he has going to sort of get rid of STAR and replace it with a test like MAP.
Well, do you know anybody on that?
Me.
I know.
Right?
I know. I love it.
Well, and the key is going to be the pandemic shuffle, as I'm calling it. Everybody else is having to do the pandemic shuffle. Well, it's time for the Texas legislature to address the pandemic shuffle and standardized testing in this education world. I mean, it's our failure rates are soaring across the country. They're saying that failure rates across this country are up 83% in some districts, and in others 123%. And so it's like, you're going to have to understand this remote learning is not working. And you can't throw a standardized test out there knowing that Houston ISD has got a 42% failure rate. And it's like, come on. And so, anyways, I want to shift back, though, towards resources for families, how to feed their kids over the holiday season. So, Dr. Good, let's come back around on that. What can families do who may be struggling with food and all that?
Most districts have programs to serve their neediest. I'll just give us as an example, because this is a microcosm of what bigger districts also do. We have a church that has said, hey, we want to adopt your neediest kids. And so we've gone to the counselor. The counselor has given us our list. We've gotten the list out. One family has 10 kids on there, if you can believe that. That's the beauty of our charter school.
Wow.
All 10 can come K-12 without having to go to 3 different schools. But anyway, and so that's happening all over the Metroplex. If you know a family that's in trouble, then have them go to their school counselor. 9 times out of 10, school counselors can very quickly tap into resources. And it's a lot of times through the North Texas Food Bank, it's Minnie's Pantry, other food pantries that have also other SEL, social emotional resources attached to it. There is no reason why families have to suffer in today's environment. And so, and heck, if you absolutely do not know who to turn to, either reach out to me or reach out to JP.
Yes.
We all have access to a huge, long resource list of all sorts of resources, not only food, not only mental health, but anything else. Oftentimes, schools can get rent help, clothing, just, there's, and JP, I hope you'll join me in that we know so many resources that can make a family's life bearable. I won't say, you're going to feel like a millionaire, but to make it through till you get the new job, or until things stabilize and so forth. There are resources out here to help every family in every county. It's just a matter of knowing who to tap into. And now
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
and to build on that, the key is also don't let your pride get in the way. My mom, when we were 4 and 6, my mom
you and your sister,
my mom had to run.
Yep.
Because we had a biological father that was a paranoid schizophrenic with criminal tendencies.
Abusive, threatening.
Threatened to kill us.
Yeah.
Tried to kill us. And my grandmother and great-grandmother, they didn't believe in divorce. They're from Portugal, the old country. You don't divorce your husband no matter what. And so my mom was on her own with 2 kids. And my mother went on food stamps. And she didn't go on welfare because she refused to do that. But she told me one time, because I asked her about it because I didn't understand it. And she explained it to me. She says, I will never let my kids go hungry. She goes, I won't go on welfare, but I will feed you. And she was off food stamps in 6 months, started her own little company through medical transcription, got some machines, and she was off food stamps in 6 months. But she didn't allow her pride to stop her from feeding her kids. You know, and I stood in line as a kid at a Parks and Rec in Calwa, California, for a free block of USDA cheese, which was like a 2-pound or 3-pound block in a black, or not a black, but a brown cardboard box with a blue stamp that said USDA. I mean, I'll never forget it. And a box of Carnation dry milk and a thing of beans. You know, and so when it comes to feeding your kids, put your pride on the shelf. Ask for help. Contact your school counselors. Contact Dr. Good. Contact myself. I have resources. Dr. Good has resources.
Yeah, reach out to JP, Kathy,
throughout
and the crew.
DFW.
All of us have resources. Heck, y'all, between the three of us, we've got resources in every neck of the woods in the state of Texas. And if you're in another state and you're listening and you need help, we can find somebody in that state who can help you. Please don't go hungry.
And that pride thing, that starts with mental health, right? And it goes to all aspects of family life. So it's not just food, but if you or a family member are starting to exhibit signs that need further observation, again, if you've got school-age kids, your school counselors are even better trained now. I will tell you, there's never been so much SEL, social emotional training for counselors as there is now. I just went through a day-long course in becoming a first aider, and I need to get that to y'all. I think you'll like this program. I am now a certified first aider, and they train you in how to observe and how to get help, but not to diagnose and not to think that you can become really a doctor. But there are now first aider programs for people like you and me to, again, look for signs of stress in families and in family members, and then do something about it as far as getting them help.
Well, and I need that because I've got my dad coming to live here, and I need to be able to know how to provide first aid. Even though I had gone through a program in Maryland, through the University of Maryland as a volunteer firefighter, I was a first responder, and then I became an EMT at 16 and a half. But I still need a refresher course so I can help take care of my dad.
This is, interestingly enough, this is a first aider for mental health.
Interesting. This
is a sort of a new program.
Can you send us information on that?
I will.
Because send us a link on that. That's good to know. And how long did it take you to do that certification?
Well, there was a 2-hour pre-course that I had to finish, and it really wants to know what I think I already know.
Okay.
We think we know a lot about, especially those of us in the school business, about suicide and people who exhibit suicidal ideation, all that.
Right.
And a lot of times you're having to be disabused of myths and notions that you have before you can really become an effective first aider. And then after I took the 2-hour course, then I had a 4-hour course that we took online with it's a very small group. There are only 10 of us with the trainer, and she walks you through videos of actual kids and their stories and so forth. So it's not super long, but those of us who are around
people who possibly have those tendencies, yes,
that might show distress, it would be a good.
Please send that to JP and I. Yes, that's good to know. I did not know about that.
And I'm glad that you clarified that, because then a lot of us probably need to take that.
Yeah, this is new. It's first aid for mental health.
Thank goodness. That's music music to our ears, because again, this is something that a couple of years ago, Dr. B Good, when you started on our show, there would never have been discussion of anything like this. We started talking about mental health when it wasn't the thing to talk about. And now you've got a program like this. That's amazing that they even put first aid and mental health in the same sentence like that, as they should.
Yeah, it's certified. I'm a certified first aider for mental health.
Love it. Well, congratulations.
Well, so Dr. Good, I've got food now. And, as much as we commercialize the world out of everything now, it used to be pick your toys out of the Sears Roebuck catalog. Then it became the Toys R Us catalog that came out at Christmas, which, by the way, I had more fun circling what I wanted out of the Toys R Us catalog that was about 4 inches thick than I did, I think, even on Christmas Day. You know, but now everything is so commercialized, right? If a kid has a phone, a commercial will come up about what he has been thinking about because it can read its mind on toys and things like that. So I've got them food. How do I get a little Christmas for a family who's been out of a job, COVID stricken on that deal, and they can't afford to buy their kids even a basic toy?
So, you know, I would encourage, if you're thinking about buying kids, it depends on the age group, of course, but a lot of these STEM type of, I almost hate to call them toys because toys tend to sound frivolous, but we have a lot of STEM
Educational toys
that encourage thinking along with fun, and then books. You know, we tend to forget that books are the anchor to literacy, and so making sure that we get lots of books, age appropriate books, in the hands of kids. What I would encourage you to do is ask the parents what interests your kids. If I were to buy them books, and you don't have to buy them. You know, I don't encourage people to buy brand new books. I think they're way too expensive. I go to
Half price books.
books.
Heck yeah.
and I go to the the Facebook thing where you can buy 30 books for $10. I buy all of that for my grandkids. I've got boxes of books that my husband gets mad at. But anyway, my grandkids get constant shipments of new books so that they can read to each other and have the parents read. That's how you further the love of reading. You know, I went to a very, very famous literacy guy back several years ago. I can't remember, Cuman, I think his name. He huge in the literacy world. And he said if he had his druthers, he would not allow grammar to be taught until 9th grade. It would only be reading. It'd be reading what we love to read, interest us, you know, it's about reading. And so, you know, don't just fall prey to the fancy toys. Make sure that we get some lots of reading in their hands, lots of books.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, the gift of reading is the best gift you can give I mean, obviously, besides health and all that kind of stuff and shelter, but the gift of reading, that's a lifelong gift you're giving to your child that they will, or a child that you love, that they will take into their adult years and continue to be a reader and continue to learn.
We can't do that enough. And so the advice that I would encourage you to give any family that's struggling is, you know, you can bond over books. You can have that, I always said it, that nighttime routine of bath, book, and bed, right? And it doesn't matter how much money you have or you don't have. If you get into that routine, that's an excellent routine, no matter what economic level you're from. And it will encourage a love of reading, especially if the parents use fun voices when they're reading, especially the younger ones. Your parents put their finger under the words as they read so kids track the words. There's all sorts of little tricks that one can do, but bottom line, spending time with your kids in a structured way, consistently reading fun books and asking them questions about what they've just read, how they would change the ending, why do they think the characters did what they did. All of that is important in a parent home, no matter what economic level they are from.
All right, well said, Dr. Good. And I cannot thank you enough for switching
Wonderful
times
information
this morning. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And don't forget to tune into the Dr. Be Good show.
Absolutely.
Thursdays at 6 o'clock.
And
Sundays at 8 o'clock. And
always a great show. Always a great
and you
show.
can catch it anytime
Yeah, go
by
watch
going
it now.
to
Or watch it after our show.
jpkcrew.com. That's again, jpkcrew.com.
Yep.
I have one of my favorite families coming on. They're going to talk about how they spend Christmas, how they have their kids buy gifts for siblings and so forth. You know, sort of common sense things, because sometimes families just don't know what to do and they end up spending way too much money. So let's hear from a real family on what do we do around Christmas to make Christmas meaningful and yet not frivolous or expensive.
Love it.
All right. Well, Dr. Be Good, have a blessed day.
Always a pleasure.
We'll talk
Thank
to you soon.
All right. Take care. All right, you
You
can
too.
see here to our right, well, to my right, and to the camera's right, we have got Lathan joining us again, and just super excited. Have tons to talk about.
Yeah.
Now-
Do you have 3 hours?
But I want to get your feedback on this though.
And then I've got a veterans event in Frisco tomorrow to announce.
Gotcha.
One of our gentlemen from our telethon, and he just sent me some information for us to get out to the crew.
Sounds perfect. So, but this morning, I'm listening to the news, and a family comes on, and a 4-year-old gets on Santa's lap in Minnesota at a mall and asks for a Nerf gun. And Santa's like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to bring you a gun. You'll need to ask your dad or mom if they want to get you one. But that's all I want is a Nerf gun. No, Santa will not bring you a gun.
Wow, Santa and censorship.
Right.
Have we lost our ever-loving minds?
Yeah. Oh, that Santa has.
Yes,
For sure.
before you put on your first Liberty hat, Lathan.
Yeah, I saw that video.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I saw that video. Yeah, and it was just sad. I mean, the kid starts crying because the guy says,
He's
no guns,
4.
not
He's a
even
little
Nerf guns.
baby.
Right. And, mom has to, hug the kid and console him. I also saw like an update to that story yesterday. Steven Crowder showed up at the kid's house and brought him Nerf
Oh,
guns.
I love
Yes,
it.
in fact,
I
evidently
love
Hasbro has given the entire Nerf blaster line.
Yeah.
I
to
would like
this
Santa to
4-year-old.
tell me
Yeah.
no. I would like all
Yeah.
those Nerf guns.
Well, here's what was funny.
And that Santa no longer works at that mall either.
That's
I
correct.
did not know that.
Yeah,
Well, good
and the
for that
4-year-old
mall.
called him
Yeah.
the bad
Good.
Santa.
Yeah.
4-year-old called the bad Santa.
Yes.
And then the good Santa from the mall called
Yeah.
on a virtual call, I think, or something, and made things right. It was funny. Pete, who wrote the Modern Warriors, was on this morning as well, and he said, yeah, just like a liberal, let's take away the guns so the bad guys can get all the guns, and then all the good guys do is stock up on more guns.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I had to throw that out there at you. Unbelievable.
Yeah, thankfully that had, a happy ending. A lot of the stuff you have to laugh to keep from crying. I mean, it's,
Yeah. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, jeez.
it's one of those things that will end up on one of my favorite websites on the entire internet. Really, sometimes the only reason for keeping the internet is the Babylon Bee, and I mean that satire site is just hilarious to me. But they actually had to launch a whole other website called notthebee.com because they had so many stories like that are real.
Yeah.
That appear to be satire because they're so ridiculous. And so they had to launch a completely other website
Saying-
called Not the Bee, where they post stories like this to say, this actually
is
happened.
real.
This is not us making it up as a joke on Babylon Bee. This is the real thing. So, yeah, I imagine if it's not already there, it probably will be.
Exactly. That's crazy. Well, let's talk about here in the wonderful city of Frisco. Oh, and congratulations to our friend Dan Strickland, who won a city council runoff last night. Way to go, Dan. There is the Frisco Veterans Advisory Council has a mayor's veteran social. It's going to be at the Verona Villa, which is literally just a stone's throw from here. December 10th, that's tomorrow, from 6:30 until 9:30. Hors d'oeuvres will be served. There's a cash bar. Please bring a toy for Tots and go out and help support our veteran community here in the Frisco area. I think that's fantastic that they're doing that. The Veterans Council, which is a part of the Frisco Chamber of Commerce, we're going to be working with them, and when they launch their new website, they're going to come on the show live to do that. So super excited to work with them and support their endeavors with Mayor's Veteran Social tomorrow from 6:30 to 9:30 at Verona Village.
And so there you go. Get
Very
out there and
cool.
support
Good
your
stuff.
vets. Yeah, I love that stuff. Absolutely. So, a lot going on. Ken Paxton's been busy.
Yeah.
So, the couple, 3 things I want to hit you with this morning. One, what has Ken Paxton done? A lot of people think he's already
Right.
at the Supreme Court. He's not. And let's explain that. Number 2, California, Gavin Newsom
Right.
has come. That's what my uncles and my aunts call him in California, as Gavin Newsom. What has he done? Because he's now come out and said everything's going to remain closed through the
Right.
holidays. And then number 3, where do we stand on being able to understand what the Supreme Court has to go through to pick a case? I think people think that everything that gets sent to the
Right.
Supreme Court gets heard. We
Not
talked
at
about, we
all.
touched on it a
Yeah.
little bit the other day, but would love to just take a real quick lesson on how does the Supreme Court get a case? How does it get to them? What's the process?
Right.
And then how do they decide that? So
Okay.
those are the three things I want to hammer you with today.
Okay. In most cases, where the merits of a case, are part of the Supreme Court's jurisdiction, when you file your appeal, technically what you're asking for is you're asking for a writ of certiorari, which is probably my Arkansas pronunciation of the Latin term.
Certiorari
Yeah.
or certiorari, but also a writ of cert. You can hear
Right.
people say writ of cert.
Everybody just sort of abbreviates it to cert. And when they take a case, it goes on the cert granted list. If they don't take the case, it goes on the cert denied list. They put that list out every week while they're in session, because the process of them deciding what cases they're going to take is the 9 justices meet, just the 9 justices. Nobody else is allowed in the room. I would give a lot to be a fly on the wall.
Oh my
just
goodness!
once. But
as a lawyer, yeah, that's like a dream.
yeah, so they meet, the 9 of them, and they have a list of cases that day that they're going to consider, and they discuss those cases, and then they take a vote as to who wants to hear this case and who doesn't. They have opportunity to kind of talk about it amongst themselves, try to convince each other yay or nay, and then they take a vote. If 4 justices vote to take the case, then cert is granted. So
Okay.
you got to have 4 justices interested enough to take the case, and then of course you need 5 votes to win. So 4 to take the case, 5 to win.
Right.
And in a typical Supreme Court term, they get around 7,000 to 8,000 cases appealed to them, and they may grant cert on 70 to 80. So roughly 1%.
Right.
So
Which is just minuscule. I mean, really.
Right.
I mean, just I think most people don't realize that. I've noticed several people have been posting. The case is going to be heard before it's for and it's there's a lot more that goes into it than that.
Yeah, and so the just the numbers game, the odds are against you. It's 1%
Right.
that they're actually going to hear, and it's because there's no possible way they can hear them all, and so they have to be selective as to what cases they hear. A lot
Right.
of factors go into that decision, but then there's I think what also sometimes confuses people is those are cases that they're going to hear oral argument, they're going to be briefed, and then they're going to vote and issue an
Right.
opinion. They're addressing the merits of that case. There are other cases, and we've seen several during COVID, where people are asking the Supreme Court for emergency relief, and those petitions for emergency relief don't really get to the underlying merits of the case. It's and the one that probably confused a lot of people came out of, I think it was California, and then again in Nevada, where people were asking the Supreme Court for emergency relief to stay an order by a lower court related to, or a governor's action related to COVID, like in Nevada, where they allowed casinos to open at 50% capacity, but churches
Right,
could
but
only have
churches
50 people.
exactly.
Same thing in California.
Oh, the hypocrisy there.
Right. Same thing in California. And in both of those cases, the Supreme Court refused to give that emergency relief. Before Barrett was on the court, it was sworn in. It was an 8-member court, and so
Right.
if there's a 4-4 split, if there's a tie, then the lower court decision stays.
Right.
And in the California case,
God
Roberts,
bless President Trump for appointing her to the Supreme Court. That's all I have to say about that.
because before she was on there, the California case split 4-4 because Roberts went with the liberals in sort of deferring to, quote, the experts and the governors who
Right.
were relying on the experts. And so that left the lower court decision in place. On matters of emergency action like that, the court divides the circuit courts of appeals amongst them, and one justice is the first person to hear the emergency petition. Then he or she makes a decision, to either refer it to the full court, say, yes, I think we should hear this and grant the emergency relief, or not. So in our case in Kentucky, where we've asked for emergency relief on Governor Beshear's order closing the schools, Justice Alito is the justice who hears the emergency that's the 7th Circuit or 6th Circuit. So it initially goes to him, and we're he's ordered briefing, and we've submitted our brief, so now we're waiting on his decision there. So, but if they refuse to grant that emergency relief, that doesn't end the case.
Right.
So, like in the case of Kentucky, if Alito decides not to grant or recommend that they grant the emergency relief, we would just go back to the Sixth Circuit and ask for an en banc review by the Sixth Circuit, which just means the entire Sixth Circuit hears the case instead of just the 3-judge panel who hears it initially. And that would then address the merits of that case, and depending on that decision, then we could appeal that decision back to the Supreme Court. Now, the reason we ask for emergency relief is because it's dealing with schools,
right?
And sometimes these things can take months to actually get heard, and there's only
so you need,
a
it's
few
time
months
sensitive.
left
Yeah,
in
so
the school
you're
year.
going to hear it in May. Okay, when graduation's right around the
Right,
corner.
exactly.
That's not. Yeah.
Well, Lathan, one of the things too is, and maybe it's because it's now and it's 2020 and we've got a pandemic, but you don't often hear, at least in media anyways, about emergency relief sought at the Supreme Court.
Right. It's been more common because of all the stuff related to COVID and these governors acting with emergency powers and frankly, way too broad and way too vague emergency powers defined by, in my opinion, poorly crafted emergency power statutes by the state legislature.
Yes.
So there has been a lot more
kind of like throwing it out there, just and whatever sticks, kind of a thing. That's some of that legislation has got to be cleaned up in these
that's
states.
where legislators really need to do their job better.
Absolutely.
Well, and especially
Glad
those
you mentioned
full-time
that.
paid ones,
Yeah, exactly.
like
the-
Illinois and California.
Right.
Yeah.
It's it's what you had one job, those.
Yeah, that's your gig,
Yeah.
and let's do it.
Right.
What a crazy concept.
I mean, everybody, all your teachers are on furlough but work with no pay.
Yeah.
Your highway patrol the same, but we're going to pay our state assembly,
Sure.
and then they're
to
not going
stay
to do
at
their
home.
job.
Yeah.
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 So you're right. There has been, I think, an uptick in petitions for emergency relief because of all things related to the pandemic. You mentioned A.G. Paxton filed a suit.
Yes.
So he sued Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin related to their election changes to their election process. Basically, I haven't actually had a chance to read the petition yet, but it's related to the changes they made to their elections process. And I believe his claim is that they didn't, follow the constitutional procedure of these things being done by the state legislatures. And one of the few areas where the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction, so it is like the very first court to hear it, is when there's a dispute between states. And so Paxton, on behalf of Texas,
Yes.
sued for other states. So that's a case that the Supreme Court has the original jurisdiction in. So it goes directly to, he doesn't start in district court and then the appeal, it goes directly to the Supreme Court. They're basically like the trial court for
Right.
matters
For
between states.
Right.
And so, now we still have to wait to see if they're going to take it. They don't necessarily have to hear that, but they're just the first court to hear cases when states are suing each other.
Well, and I wanted people to hear that it's not that it's already in the Supreme Court. It's not. Yeah, he's filed the petition and the request.
Right.
But the justices have to agree that it has enough merit
Right.
to warrant a hearing or,
Right.
I guess, lack of a better term, trial in front of the 9 justices.
Yep.
And so it's going to be interesting to see if the justices take on this lawsuit, because this could really set a burning
A
precedent.
big precedent.
Moving
yes.
forward.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, a big part of it, what I'm concerned about, is there any kind of branches that come out of this, and I'm asking this as a question, that could impact the Electoral College, because that's now coming under fire as well. And so I'm just curious, are there branches that can come out of this lawsuit that could touch on the Electoral College that could cause problems down the road?
Potentially. I mean, I think regardless of whether or not they take the case or what they decide to do with it, my personal opinion, I don't think they will. But regardless of that, I think you will see some states and some state legislatures now take some measures the appropriate way through the state legislatures to maybe address how they choose their presidential electors for the next cycle,
Interesting.
to try
Okay.
to maybe combat some of the perceived problems with what happened in this election cycle.
Right.
And that could actually be a good thing. Excuse me, the founders We have really, if you read the Constitution, there is no such thing as a national popular vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not.
There's not.
The president is chosen by electors, selected by or appointed by the state legislatures. Originally, the Senate appointed the U.S. The U.S. senators were appointed by the state legislatures.
Right.
And even the members of Congress are elected by the people in their district.
Right.
So there is nowhere in the Constitution a national popular vote. Some people think there should be. Some people think that's how we should choose the president. I personally think the Electoral College
Then
is
California and New York
brilliant.
are the only people that ever see a presidential candidate or a president. Literally, you can ignore 48 other states
Yeah, exactly.
and
Yeah.
still be president.
Right.
You know,
flyover country truly becomes flyover country at that point.
Exactly.
Nobody cares,
exactly.
what the people in Oklahoma or South Dakota or Colorado or Nebraska, any of those places, because they'll just go to the major population centers and campaign there.
Well, and that's become a topic of conversation. I don't know if you've watched any of the Sunday morning news shows. I have not, but I pick up and I read what's going on them because I just don't want to listen to them anymore. I'm tired of listening to all of it.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's come out, and very, very liberal, Stephanopoulos is all over this as well, is the Electoral College is just outdated and it's not a good system, and we need to go to a national popular vote. And when I hear that, I think of Cuba, Chile, I think of Russia, or pardon me, the Soviet Union. I'm thinking China. I don't want a popular vote because it does not represent the entire country.
Well,
Sure.
the founding fathers were, once again, we look at the brilliance that even back then, and again, there were different reasons back
Sure.
in the day when this was put into place, but it still works to this day. And
Yeah,
it can work
absolutely.
for decades and generations to come, till the end of time with our country.
Yeah, when they put it in place, I mean, New York, New York City, was already a
Yep.
major population
Yeah.
center. For, Philadelphia, Boston, and with a popular vote, even when it was 13 states, nobody would have cared what Georgia thought,
Right.
or South Carolina, because there wasn't a lot of
Right.
people there, not nearly as many as Boston, New York, Philadelphia.
Right.
So, in the same way they compromised on the legislature and the House being selected by being determined by population,
Right.
and the Senate being equal, all states have. That was
Right.
a compromise in how they crafted the legislature. They instituted the Electoral College to protect the vote of people who don't live in a major population area,
Yeah.
and you didn't want. I think it's Ben Franklin said democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what's for supper.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
They were very suspicious of direct democracy and,
Yeah.
and just majority rule, because majority rule
And again, it makes sense.
can abuse the
Yeah.
minority.
You're
and
right.
all you would need is 50% plus one, of the voters to take away the rights of the people who are in the 49%.
Right.
And that's why they put these things in place, and
Right.
and they have worked ever since.
And why, and I know, you hear, and I know probably even before I got involved in politics, I'm sure there's always been some type of an ongoing discussion, if you will, about the Electoral College. But it seems like it just recently has become a real big, and the lefts, the progressives, or whatever, the socialists, they're really, really shoving this down people's throats. I know, for example, Dr. Good, who's on our show, her schools have somebody who is an elector for the state of Texas doing a presentation today educating their government high school kids on the Electoral College. And I said, what's funny? After that presentation, those kids, some of them who, maybe freshmen can't vote yet or sophomores and can't vote yet, they will know more than most of your average Joe adults about the Electoral College walking around. So we've lost educating kids on what the Electoral College is and how important it is. And there's just such a push to get rid of it in the media, in the social media, and newscasters who will say stuff like what JP was talking about on these Sunday morning news shows and some of these other news channels that we won't mention. And I'm like, did y'all know? Did y'all learn about the Electoral? I mean, if you're in the news and you're reporting on it, you should at least do some research on it, right?
Yeah, I think a big push for it came out of the 2016 election when
Bingo.
Hillary Clinton got more
Bingo.
votes in the popular vote, but lost the electoral college. And it's gone that way before. In previous elections, it wasn't the first time that had ever happened. So when your preferred candidate wins the popular vote but doesn't win the electoral college, all of a sudden you don't like the electoral college,
Right.
and maybe we should just get
Right.
rid of this and go to the popular vote. But that's really cutting off your nose to spite your face. I mean,
Yep.
that is truly would long term would really be bad for the country.
Right.
So people need to really consider the long term consequences, not just the short term political fallout
Right.
of each election.
Right.
Well, and let's dig deeper than that,
Yeah,
right?
you're talking common sense, though, Lathan.
Well-
What's that all about?
Right.
But no, in all seriousness, let's dig deeper, right? That's the surface top. So why would it be bad if the majority of Americans who did vote voted that way? Why is it bad that California has 86 million people or what have you, and in North Dakota, or was it South Dakota, Daschle was the majority. Not majority whip, the majority, no.
I think he was at one point he was in the leadership when they had the majority, and then I think he was the minority
Minority
whip
whip.
when they were in the
But
minority.
he wasn't the Speaker of the House. What was Daschle?
Dash was in the Senate, so I think he was the minority whip in the Senate.
And he was South Dakota, right?
I think that's right.
Yeah, he won. There were 11,000 votes casted in his election, And so what I'm getting at, though, is that South Dakota's needs are very different than California's needs.
Right.
The way that people think in South Dakota is very different than the way people in California think and what they want.
Right.
In Florida, where there are, I think, what are we, 31 million people or something like that in Florida, somewhere in that neighborhood, their needs are far more different than the needs of people in Nebraska.
Right.
And so do we take out Nebraska and Missouri and Kansas and South Dakota, North Dakota,
Right.
Rhode Island? Do we take these states out of the mix and say what you have going on doesn't matter and we're just going to control you because we can get a majority win? And the answer is no. That's bad.
Right.
Because then you get rid of 46 states pretty much, because you basically then have California, Texas, Florida, New York, and Michigan.
And it's
Yeah.
really, and then
Maybe
it even-
Illinois.
and it,
Maybe
it,
Illinois,
Yeah.
right, with
in
Chicago. and all that.
Chicago, and again,
Yeah.
so you're mentioning that because of Chicago, then it really goes down to then basically, it's not that you're just giving those states, you're giving L.A., New York City proper, Dallas, Houston, Chicago. What would be one of the most populated cities in Florida? Miami.
Miami.
So basically, you've
Tampa,
got-
St. Pete,
Yes,
Miami.
so literally, you could go and you could name about 10 cities. So basically, 10 cities, not counties, control who is the president. Really?
Right. And it's another layer of federalism that's built into the Constitution.
Yep.
Yep. The founders at the time, even the original 13 states, life in Georgia was very different than life in New Hampshire.
Right.
And now, as we said, life in Texas, very different than life in California. Thank God.
And thank goodness, yes, thank goodness for that.
And you have, the freedom as an American to vote with your feet. If you like the way California does things, then live in California.
Yeah.
Many people have fled California for
and
Texas,
moved to Texas.
and Florida and Tennessee, and places that the policies are working better and
More in
creating better
keeping with the
economies.
the American family.
So when it comes to selecting president and or United States senators, where
Right.
everybody gets two, that I think has led to the fact that you don't see throughout history anyway. Maybe there's a caveat to that in the last 10, 20 years, but throughout history you haven't seen radical shifts in
Right.
policy,
Right.
because you have to win. You can't just win California.
Right.
You got to win California and Oklahoma and South Dakota,
Right.
and Ohio. And
States that have a variety of lifestyles and priorities and a way of life.
yeah, exactly. And there are very few things the founders wanted to be the same everywhere. The states are basically left to run the states the way they want to, in the 9th and the 10th Amendment.
Right.
There are very few things they wanted the federal government to do, which would be the same for everybody. Those are enumerated powers. Those, and that's, the role of the federal government.
Right.
But it's a very small list. We've expanded it, over time.
Maybe we didn't need to.
And maybe that wasn't such a good
Yeah.
idea. People talk about, how divided the country is, how rancorous the politics is. If you want to see the whole country's temperature come down a little bit when it comes to presidential elections, then reduce the role of the federal government in your life the way the founders intended it.
Amen.
And then these national elections won't be
the end all,
the be all, end
exactly.
all, and
Yep.
and so important to people. If California, wants to turn their state into a third world communist
rock and roll.
hellhole, then go
That's-
ahead.
Good luck.
But
yeah.
the people there have the right to leave and go somewhere else if they don't like it. But where it becomes a problem, and this is really relatively recently, I would say, in American history, is where California, via the federal government, comes to me to ask for my tax money to bail them out of their own bad policy decisions.
Right.
Or via Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House, San Francisco policies that are popular in San Francisco, trying to impose them on the rest of the country via the federal government.
Right.
That's not what the founders intended, and that I think is a reason why the national elections have become so
do or die.
Yeah, and just the politics has gotten so bad. Now, perspective is important. People talk about this is the worst division the country's ever been at. Well, we're not in a civil war yet.
No.
You don't have senators caning each other on the floor of the Senate.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that would be entertaining live TV.
People would that would be a good pay-per-view
I would love
show.
to see
There you go.
Ted Cruz
I'll
after Bernie Sanders.
My money's on Ted Cruz any day.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. But really, and I agree, politics has gotten pretty nasty, even in my lifetime of following politics. If you want to reduce that, then reduce the role of the federal government. Reduce it in scale and scope, and get it back to what it was intended to do. Very few things, and do them well, and let the states be the states. Life in Texas does not have to be the same as life in New Hampshire or Maine or Colorado or wherever. And people who like the way Texas does things will live in Texas. Why I'm here.
I.e.,
that and I'm married
why
a Texan,
I'm here.
so it was kind of inevitable.
Well, there you go. I was going to say, Kim wasn't going to let you live anywhere else. Just FYI.
Yeah. So,
well, then also I want to kind of piggyback on what you said. So, if there wasn't so much of a oh my gosh, it's the end of the world if this president or that presidential candidate doesn't get in, then maybe would people focus more on, and I'm speaking to a former city councilman, on their local races, which are the ones where it is your own backyard. Your city council races, your school board races, your mayor's races, those should be and if you get 10% turnout for those, you're like, oh, we got double digits.
Right.
So maybe then we the people would look at those elected officials in our own backyard and place more importance on those. They're going to determine what school books your kids are reading. They're going to determine if your mail gets picked or your trash gets picked up once a week or not.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that would be a really nice development in American political life if people started paying more attention to local elections. The founders believe that government closest to the people is best, and there is a distinct role for the federal government. There's a distinct role for the state governments, and there's a distinct role for the local governments.
Right.
And when I was on council, whatever was being proposed, or some ordinance or proposal or whatever, my filter that I ran everything through when I was analyzing everything was, number one, should any level of government do this?
Okay.
If not, I'm voting no. I don't care what it is, and I don't care how popular it is. If this is not a role for government, then I'm not going to support it.
Right.
Okay, so if there is a role for government, is the city government the appropriate level
Place for
of
it to
government
be.
to be involved? If no, I'm voting
Yep.
no. I don't care
Even
how
if you
popular it
support it
is,
again.
right?
Yep.
Even if I think it's a
Yep.
good idea, this is not the right. This should be handled by the county
Right.
or the state or the feds or who or whatever.
Right.
If it is, if the answer to that is yes, the local government, okay, then I'll consider it.
Right.
Now, do I think it is a good policy? Do I think the impact would be
Right.
positive, negative? So be it.
Right.
Does it keep with the other principles of government that I believe in? Low taxes,
Right.
less regulation.
Right.
And so yes, paying more attention to your local races, and many of which, I mean, at least in Texas, are nonpartisan. So you actually do have to pay pretty close attention to what those candidates are actually saying, because there's not going to be an R or D by their name on the ballot.
Exactly. So you better listen really close and look at their policy, and then if they've been on city council, look at their voting record or the school board, and then if you don't like what they're doing, vote them out.
Yeah, exactly. There aren't as many, especially at the local level, because like you mentioned, a lot of what it deals with is basic governance.
Right.
Keep the streets paved, keep the cops and the firefighters paid. Make sure the trash gets picked up, that sort of thing. There's not really a strong partisan divide
No.
on paving streets and paying cops and getting the trash picked up.
Right.
However, there are some things where you can sort of tell what a person's political philosophy is. I was on city council for 4 years. We lowered the tax rate twice in 4 years.
Oh, that's phenomenal. It can be done.
It can be
Councilman.
done. Right. The first couple of years I was on, the economy was really good. Revenues were up. And so we voted to lower the tax rate. Then the economy took a turn for the worse. And I can tell you the knee-jerk reaction of the city staff, the professionals, the people who work in government, their reaction was, well, it's no problem. We'll just raise the tax rate
Right.
back and we'll get our revenues back. And I was like, oh, hold on.
Yeah.
No. You're asking the taxpayers to shelter you from the effects of this economy, and they're the ones bearing the brunt of this economy. And, I just made it clear I'm voting no on any tax increase, and I'm going to make famous anybody who votes yes. And we ended up, shockingly, not raising the tax rate back. We did we froze some positions and didn't hire for them. We didn't have to fire anybody, but, we didn't increase spending on certain things. We
So
sort of
it
froze
can be
spending.
done.
It can be done. And that's why I always look at candidates for higher office to see if they ever served a local office, because when you're dealing
Yes.
with budgets at the local office, you don't just get to print more money if you need it.
Right.
Spending cuts have faces at the
Right.
local level.
Oh, yeah.
You're sitting in the
You
room.
work within your boundaries.
Exactly.
Like
Yes.
the city of Plano looking at grants for homeless, or they got to get rid of that and then they got to cut the police budget, and
Right.
that's where they find more money. But all right, enough of that. It's 9:00.
We said we could talk for 3 hours today.
Right. But
We
it's-
weren't kidding.
You weren't kidding. But it's 9:00, and so I've got a different question for
Okay.
you. It is the holiday season, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my word this year has been charity. Charity for heart and souls of all mankind,
Sure.
which encompasses humankind. I'm sure somebody's been transgressed. They get the Kiss My Butt Award. We've called it mankind forever. It'll stay that way.
Yeah.
I'm not putting away my flag.
Right.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
So with that being said, though, what could you pass on to all of our viewers and listeners where they might be a little more charitable in their heart and soul this Christmas season, with it being the pandemic? What would you suggest?
Not to sort of break my arm, pat myself on the back, but something my family has done since my kids were very little. I started when I was actually on city council. At Thanksgiving, we always take a turkey to the firehouse to the guys whose shift is going to include Thanksgiving Day. They're not going to be at home with their families,
Right.
right?
Awesome.
So at Christmas, my girls and I, bake something homemade, and we go up to the police station on Christmas Eve, because there are people who are, away from their families on
Got
Christmas
it.
Eve, and we give it to the folks that are,
Oh, I love
working
that.
that shift.
I
So
love that.
little things like that, just to let them know they're appreciated. Most of the time when you interact with police, it's not fun.
Especially nowadays.
right.
Lathan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, howdy.
And thank you for that, because I think that sometimes we forget that our first responders don't get Christmas Day off.
Exactly.
It's
and-
not retail, exactly.
Right. And so, they're on call. And sadly, we hear every year that house fire as a result of the Christmas tree light shortening or And the firemen didn't wake up out of their homes
Right.
to go to the fire. They were away from their family at the fire station waiting for that,
Yep.
hoping it doesn't happen.
Yep.
So don't forget your first responders this holiday season. Something as easy as baking cookies or dropping off a turkey will bring a smile and warm up their hearts.
Absolutely.
And so especially in an era where defund the police has become popular amongst socialists and liberals. And so we want to thank you, Lathan, for sharing that. I'm going to ask every guest that as
Sure.
we continue through
I
the
think it's
holiday
important.
season. So
It's important.
with that being said, we are JP, Kathy, and the crew right here on the JPK Broadcasting Network. We love to bring you all kinds of fun and interesting and informational and educational opportunities. And so you can find us at jpkcrew.com on the internet, and that way you can hook up with all of our social media accounts and all of our shows. Today is Wednesday. Don't forget, tomorrow, huge day.
Big old day for the network.
And so tune in to all of our shows. You can find that lineup again at jpkcrew.com. Have a very blessed day.
We love you. Christmas blessings.